Happy Friday, friends. Today we are going to talk about a story that normally we cover every single year in worship, but this year, because we're in the Gospel of John, we didn't cover it because John doesn't tell this story. This is the one of the Transfiguration, which I'll get to in a minute. I want you to think of when you think of light, right? You think of the sun. And the sun goes away and it gets dark. And what are the things that bring light in the dark? Literal things, not Jesus. Yes, literal, I get it, but I mean things like this. What about light bulbs? Light, for the longest time in this world in the darkness, when you think of it in a traditional sense of the words, meant you had to have a torch. And while torches are lovely, torches are also dangerous because of, fire. The light bulb was such a revolutionary thing. It changed the world. Now, not everyone has light bulbs, but when that light comes on in the dark, it changes how we look at things. And the same thing is true about Jesus, especially in the story of the Transfiguration, where he lights up, if you will, like a light bulb. So I want to share this story with you in case you've forgotten. Now, about 8 days after these sayings of Jesus, he took Peter and John and James and went up onto the mountain to pray. While he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became a dazzling white. Suddenly they saw two men, Moses and Elijah, talking to him. They appeared in glory and were speaking of his departure, which was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Now Peter and his companions were weighed down with sleep, but since they had stayed awake, they saw this glory, and the two men stood with them. Just as they were leaving him, Peter said to him, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah," not knowing what he had said. While he was saying this, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were terrified as they entered the cloud. And then the cloud came from a voice came from the cloud and said, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." And when the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone, and they kept silent in those days and told nothing of the things they had seen. This idea of the Transfiguration is that the disciples with Jesus saw him literally in a different light. The face lit up, the robe lit up some magical way, and they understood something different about him. And we say transfigured as in changed. It's an amazing thing when you can shed light on a situation, right? You know the saying. It's an amazing thing when you're confused, when you're struggling, whether you're in the shadows or the dark, or you're in some light, and you get a better light. If you've ever worked in a garden and you're trying to do it, sometimes you actually need a little bit extra light. Try weeding in the dark. Not real efficient. You can learn things about it. So a garden doesn't just need light. It needs a very specific kind of light, a time of light. When you're growing things from seed with grow lights, you can't just leave them on. They need certain amounts of light at certain times of day, and not all light is the same. You wouldn't just take a light bulb. You have special light. This idea of transfiguration, when I think about the garden that grows from dirt into plants, both good things, but dirt eating not great, vegetable eating much better. The garden gets transfigured because of that light, but then it also applies to you and I. I want you to think for a second. How has the light and life of Christ changed, transfigured, if you will, your life? How has that light of the world changed the way you look at the world? Lit things up, brought things out of darkness or shadow, helped you see differently in this world? The reality is, we're all called to be transfigured like Jesus. Not in the same way, not with Moses and Elijah per se, but to use that light that has shined upon us, the light of the world, and let it change us for the better. So as you go into this weekend, as you think about what's coming up over the course of the weekend, as we get closer and closer to the Easter story, where has this light transformed you, changed you, encouraged you, brought you out? Because I think you'll find, if you think carefully, that light and life, that presence of Christ, you will see even more so in your life as you realize how you have been changed and transformed, transfigured by the light. Have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you soon.